Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's 100 and 100 installment, number 8. So still a long way to go. Seems like we've been doing this for more than eight days in a row, but hopefully we're giving you some good value and opening up some good discussions and some debates and maybe making yourselves think about how you can improve your businesses moving forward. So today's session is all about, so the first in a kind of a mini series within the 100 in 100 about sourcing. We've sort of started off with a bit of context around the business and a bit more about exit sort of strategies, with the sort of whole premise of starting with the end in mind. And now we're going to go right back to the start and start talking about and discussing some of the things that we do within our own business that might be able to help you move forward. Most of the kind of resources and actions that we take within the sourcing side of our land and development business is primarily aimed at achieving direct to owner sites. We very rarely do deals that are off the market, going on Rightmove or going on commercial agents portals and that kind of thing, and just going through those kind of motions. That being said, we don't exclusively deal in off-market direct vendor opportunities. We do deal with agents in certain areas, but that's mainly based on building up a good relationship over time, really, and getting to the stage where they're perhaps sending us some opportunities that are coming across their desk, and really that's the kind of place that you want to get to, really. So when it comes to sourcing land deals, you want to have a kind of clear plan in place in terms of firstly what you're looking for. So it's about developing your criteria essentially, in terms of the type of project that perhaps you're looking for. Some people that will be watching or listening to this would be looking for conversions or new build, or maybe a combination of both. Within that, you might be looking for mixed use development where you've got commercial on the ground floor and residential above. That I know some of my consultancy clients are looking for at the moment. So it's clear. You've got to be clear in terms of what you're looking for firstly, because that might send you in a certain route in terms of how to find the projects and then how to approach owners in the right way that's going to maximize your chance of a response. Now I say response because obviously every time we reach out to an owner, even if those that come back to us, it's, not everyone is going to be a positive response, but actually what we're looking for is response regardless. So it's a case of yeses, nos. You'll sometimes come up against some choice words from landowners. It just comes with the territory effectively. So it's about working to a bit of a plan. Now, the reason I'm leading this session is because this is kind of where I sit within our business. So I'm very much the kind of door opener, if you like, and it's a good dynamic to have within our own business. Obviously, we're a family-run business, multi-generational. So it's good to understand who takes charge at whatever stage, based on their experience or expertise and their kind of understanding of what needs to be done, really. So obviously we have an internal team that generates leads, or identify sites, generates leads, and then when it comes to handling incoming inquiries, that then typically gets handed over to me. We do work to a process, some of which I'm going to go through on this session, handling those initial inquiries, moving that through to kind of meeting sequences, moving that further through into the kind of analysis side of things and appraisal side of things, and then hopefully entering into some negotiations that are going to lead somewhere. Now, obviously, depending on what resource you've got available to you, as we've said on previous sessions, it's about identifying and aligning with the 4 or 5 C's that we mentioned. So being consistent in your actions, having clear communication, having clarity in terms of your purpose and the business model that you're working through, But one of the main things when it comes to sourcing, firstly, is consistency, as I've already mentioned, but secondly, it's capacity. So it's ensuring that you've got enough capacity to deal with however many incoming inquiries, working that back from how many deals effectively that you want to do. We've sourced a hell of a lot of sites over the last, over the years, but certainly over the last sort of 18 months. We had entered an acquisition cycle. I think we're still in it somewhat, even though the market's a bit in a bit of a strange place at the moment. But we're certainly, in our opinion, in an acquisition cycle still. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for those that are well positioned, well supported. During these difficult times. Unfortunately, difficult times does spring up some good opportunities, but I think the key is that, and it runs through what we do when we're connecting with owners, that we're effectively looking to get to a point where a deal works for everybody. And the key really to development is about finding a balance. It's about finding a balance between what's going to be acceptable from the local authorities' point of view, what's desirable from the market point of view, it's what's viable from the developer's point of view, it's what's profitable potentially for the owner. But the key is it delivers what you are all looking to achieve, really. And there's lots of different ways that you can go about it. So I think that's firstly those that are perhaps a little bit less experienced, just starting out. It can become quite a daunting experience because I found that a lot of people, when they're looking at going direct to vendor, direct to owner, is they put too much pressure on themselves because there's lots of things that you can do. It's not just a route whereby potentially like a property investment sort of process that you might buy the house or at a discount, or you might do a lease option, or there's maybe 2 or 3 variations that you can potentially do. But obviously with development, there's lots of different permutations in terms of deal structures, and that can become quite daunting for people because people tend not to know where to start. And they put a lot of pressure on themselves when they're having these conversations with landowners. There's a bit of fear involved in getting something wrong, not saying the right thing, not coming across as credible, etc. And I've got to say, in my experience, the most success we've had, the most successful people that we've worked with and helped, have just been those that are themselves, and they lean into what makes them what makes them unique. So what is it that you can pick out within your business, within your purpose and what you're looking to achieve that kind of makes you stand out, really? It might not necessarily make you unique, but it's what makes you stand out above everybody else, every other developer in the area. It might be your vision. It might be the fact that you want to build eco homes, or you want to house the vulnerable, or you want to bring more equality into home ownership, or it might be that the way you go about things in terms of your processes and your structure. It might be the amount of experience that you've already got. So it's about understanding what makes you kind of stand out from anybody else, really. And from our point of view, for me, it's the fact that we're a family business. We're multi-generational. Obviously, we've got a lot of experience in the industry dating back to the sort of 50s in origin. So the credibility is there. It's almost, if I'm being honest, I think we've got a little bit of an unfair advantage when it comes to connecting with landowners, because effectively people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So the trust element for us comes from the experience in the industry, and the fact that we can come up with these figures and the number of deals that we've done and people that we've helped and things like that. And then it's about, for us, it's having a process in place that allows that kind of those people to like you and get to know you a bit more, really. So it's not just about what you do in the meetings. It's how you act in the lead up to the meetings, afterwards. What are you congruent throughout all of your outbound marketing in terms of what's on your website? You know, are you consistent and are you authentic, basically? And that's the way that we approach it at the end of the day. We're not sleek, sharp salesmen. We don't actually think that that approach works very well. You might be able to get a few people sign up to options and things like that by telling them what they want to hear. But ultimately, it's about leaning into how you go about your business. And for us, it's about delivering value. So this is the kind of terminology that we use constantly. You know, delivering value, certainty, and that really helps when it comes to connections. So just to give you a bit of kind of insight, really, into some of the things that that we do within our sort of processes. So, as I've already mentioned, obviously prior to getting that direct to owner contact, you've got sort of steps of the process that you might be handling sort of in the background in terms of identifying suitable sites. So, as I said earlier, it's about coming up with a criteria really that you can work towards. One thing I would say on criteria is it's not don't make sure you don't make it too narrow or too wide. It's a bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's about finding the one that's just right. Not too hot, not too cold, and just right, really. So if you go too narrow, you're finding a needle in a haystack type scenario. And if you go too wide, then you know you're going to be looking at absolutely anything and everything, and perhaps wasting your resources. So for us, you know, we cover a lot of different bases. So we have different criteria for different kind of businesses that we're involved in areas of the country that we're involved in. But a typical criteria that I would suggest that isn't like, say, too wide or too narrow, is something like, you know, we're looking for new build opportunities, pre or post planning, that we can deliver 4 to 40 units of residential housing in and around the kind of 2 and 3 bed family homes that are affordable for the local area. So within that, we're not looking for expensive luxury executive homes. We're not looking for small one-offs. We're not looking to mix with the big boys and the sort of 50, 60, 80, 100 units. So you start crafting something that becomes very, very specific. So, you know, that's an example of working to a criteria. Now, when it comes to moving that forward, so we've identified sites, we've generated leads through letter campaigns, we've handled all the incoming inquiries through a series of phone calls that ultimately we're just on about fact finding, and then moving it through to a series of sort of a meeting sequence. We're then moving through that meeting sequence into negotiation, and hopefully, if it's right for everybody involved, it's about closing the deal. But sort of along that way, once you get to obviously having conversations with vendors and mainly face to face, you know, across the dining table or what have you, it's we sort of do a few things that we would say is useful for anybody to do, really. So one of the first things is that where possible, sometimes it's not always possible, but where possible, we never attend a meeting alone. Certainly when it's a first meeting or second meeting, because that's when you're looking to connect with as many people as possible, landowners. Typically, a lot of the landowners that we deal with aren't alone themselves, so they're either families or businesses or business partners or a combination of all the above. So for us, it's going in there, we're maximising our chances to connect with landowners. So if that's 2 of us, for example, myself and Richard, or myself and another member of the team, or myself and one of our local partners, it's you know, we're trying to cover as many bases as possible. Because the thing is, when you go into meetings, the risk that you're actually taking by going alone is firstly not connecting with everybody in the room, but secondly, it's about you know, you've got a lot of things to talk about, you've got to listen, but then you've also got to read the room, you've got to read, you know, how are people sort of acting and that kind of thing, body language. but then you've got to have a bit of a debrief afterwards, and it's very difficult to then think back through the meeting and recollect everything that you've just been through. So we would go with two. One person takes the lead, the other person sort of is more of an observer and kind of connects when they can, chimes in when they can to kind of boost the credibility. But it's mainly about being that kind of the wingman, really, if you want to take that kind of stance. Because the thing is, have you ever been, say, for example, to an important meeting or a doctor's appointment, for example? So you've got a doctor's appointment, you go there with somebody else. So you go there with your partner or friend or what have you, and you listen to a diagnosis or you explain symptoms, and then you listen to the doctor, and then you both get in the car on the way out, and you talk about what had happened, and you both got two slightly different versions of what had been said, and that's a really good way of looking at it when it comes to a meeting with a landowner. If you're only going in there alone, you're only going to have one version, but if you go in there with two, sometimes even three, depending on what the scenario is, you've always got different recollections of the same meeting, so you can compare notes, you can make sure you've covered all bases and kind of acquired all the information that you're going to need, really. So that's one of the first pieces of advice that I'd give. Second of all, really, I get a lot of the time people come to me asking about, well, what questions do you ask? Do you have scripts? And things like that. And being honest, I think that it comes back to putting too much pressure on yourself. Ultimately, yes, you do want to kind of get a certain amount of information during the meeting period, but I don't work to a script. I certainly don't have written down questions. Probably I'm a little bit more experienced than most when it comes to this kind of scenario. But I think when you are working to a script, when you are working to preset number of questions, it starts to become a bit robotic. And ultimately the key to doing these kind of deals is connecting and properly connecting and listening. So it's about listening and then building on from what they're saying and what they're telling you, really. So on the kind of two person meeting, we call that 4-4-2. Like the football formation, because it's 4 eyes, 4 ears, and 2 mouths, rather than just the 2, 2, and 1. And then when it comes to a series of meetings, we work by what's called a 3-by-3 methodology. Really, we do it with letters and we do it with meetings. So meetings, we have sort of predetermined outcomes that we would like to achieve as we're going through the process, because there's if you don't have a sort of set process to work to, you either are going to try and rush the deal and miss out on the kind of rapport building and connecting and try and get to the deal and the numbers as quickly as possible, which ultimately isn't going to work. But then on the other side of the coin, you might then have too much time connecting, having cups of tea, patting the dog, all that kind of stuff, and realize that you've had 4 or 5 meetings and actually conversations aren't necessarily going anywhere. So in our experience, it's kind of like, if you can't get to a point where you're having advanced conversations and negotiations within 3 meetings, the chances of you actually doing the deal are quite slim. It's not saying that you won't do kind of the way that we approach it. We might follow up after 3 meetings. If it doesn't work, we might follow up again in 6 months or what have you to have another crack at it if it's appropriate. But ultimately, it's about building a pipeline and working to a process. So the 3-by-3, we're looking to build rapport and connect in meeting 1. We're then looking to present some proposals in meeting 2 based on what we found out in meeting 1 and perhaps subsequent calls or information that we found online afterwards. And then obviously meeting 3, we're hoping to get to the stage where we've got, we're working towards heads of terms or something like that. So we kind of work towards that 3-step process, really, and that's something that's worked well for us. That's worked well for us for a long time, really. But it's about honing your skills, iterating your processes, and ultimately improving as you go. But during that process, one of the important things, and probably the final point that I'm going to finish on today, um, is that you have your meeting. One, you connected, or you've made that kind of personal connection, and then you move that forward to doing a bit of due diligence and appraisal. And where we see a lot of people make mistakes is that they focus their appraisal on and the deal purely based on the numbers and the deal itself, the piece of land. Whereas actually one of the biggest things and the keys to it is actually almost doing your due diligence or your appraisal on the person, the people, because ultimately it's a two-way street. The relationship works both ways. So they've got to know, like, and trust you, but you've also kind of got to do the same as well in order for it to work. Because these deals, they're not short and sharp and swift deals. They take a long time to put together, going through the legal process, and a lot of the deals are subject to planning and conditional. So you are going to be connected with these people for quite some time. So it's important to kind of do the deals with people that you can get on with, and you can have the kind of conversations, straight conversations that you would with a business partner, for example. So for us, it's about where we find the best deals often aren't the ones that deliver the best percentage return, for example, or profit margin or amount of money. They're sometimes the best deals and the most enjoyable and profitable deals all round are the ones that where we get on well with the landowners themselves. So that's another thing is to make sure that you do your due diligence on the people as well as the property or the land or the deal. So a little bit of an insight into how we deal direct with landowners, land property owners, site owners, essentially. There's lots of opportunity. There will be lots of opportunity in the marketplace at the moment. So it's about putting your processes in place, ensuring that you're supported by the right people, getting out there, really reaching out and just trying to connect. Ultimately, you've got to become an expert in your prospects' problems. So this game is all about helping as many people as possible. And so it's about understanding what their pain point is, what their problems and challenges are, and if any of your solutions can help them overcome those problems. If any of your solutions, and you feel your solutions don't meet their requirements or you can't solve their problems, then move on to the next deal effectively. Don't try and fit a square peg in a round hole, which we see a lot of people trying to do, really. It's kind of like do the deal at all cost. Effectively connect with your landowners, understand what their problems are, evaluate that, if you can find a solution from what you have to offer, then fantastic. Promote that in terms of a proposal in the right way. If you get a bit of luck along the way as well, you'll get a deal out of it. But it's all about building the pipeline and then processing them through. So hopefully you found that useful. That's your 100 in 100 for today. First in the mini series of sourcing, so I'll probably be joining you a few times this week, talking about different areas of the sourcing business. If there's any questions, any queries, any comments, then get in touch with us, and hopefully we'll be able to help you, find some opportunities coming up and do a few deals. So thanks very much, and I shall see you very soon. Take care.